Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Last Round. While we're obviously stuck inside again, you know, we keep saying every week, Mike, right? Like we said last week, hopefully there's an end in sight here. So, you know, we can kind of get back to our normal lives. So, but we're still trying to provide content to our fans and our listeners all over the world. But once again, I'm Danny Z with my co-host Michael Shepard here. Thank you for listening again, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, you're listening on Boxing Social's YouTube channel, which is our new partner. So we appreciate that. But this week, you know, we've been getting a week. How many guests have we had in the last, what would you say, 3 months, Mike? I mean, I feel we haven't done a show, me and you, alone for a while. What do you think?
I would say most weeks. I mean, They don't want to listen to me and you, so we need to get someone on.
Right. We need to get the star power. But this week, I'm sure there's a lot of people who know who this guy is. Not just in boxing, but there's MMA fans. I have MMA buddies who I texted that you were going to be on, and they knew, oh, Grisham, yeah, he did Glory and he did all this stuff, and you know, and then obviously professional wrestling fans, WWE fans, and all that stuff know exactly who you are. At least the older ones. I don't know about the younger generation, but and now you're with DAZN. So, but you've had a long career and you're still going, obviously, and you're stuck inside just like we are. But DAZN's Todd Grisham is here this week. Thank you for joining us, Todd.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, Danny, Michael. Appreciate it. It's good to be on. You guys have been putting up some A-listers, man. First Eddie Hearn, David Diamante, now Todd Grisham. I mean, who else is there left to get?
It's going to Rising.
I think we can retire after you, man. I think it's over.
I mean, maybe Anthony Joshua. I don't know. That's maybe it.
You never know, man. We're on a pretty good path. We've had some pretty solid people do our show, so we're pretty grateful about that. But you know, just off the top, like, you know, as we mentioned, everybody's kind of stuck inside right now. How you holding up in this new, I guess, world we're living in right now?
Well, you know, everyone has different experiences. Some people are bored out of their minds. I have 3 children under the age of 9, so I'm going crazy. I shaved my head. I look like I'm in an insane asylum. And in many ways I am with these 3 kids. I mean, you have to teach them. And when you have 3 kids in 3 different grades, you're teaching a kindergartner, a first grader, a third, all work. You know, it ain't easy, but it's obviously has its plus points. Of course, the biggest negative of this thing, and you know, I don't know how it's affected you guys, but certainly on-air talent. I mean, I get paid per event that I do, just like fighters. So if I'm not doing my job, I don't usually get paid. So that sucks. So I need the sport to come back for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, because I'm a huge fan myself, and I just love watching it.
Am I right in saying that you started the Corona Cut and made Mannix and Sergio Mora and Breck Akamoto join in?
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
I said, hey, look, I was going, you know, everyone's getting bad haircuts because they can't go to the barber. So I said, let's just shave it off. So I called them. I said, listen, I'm going to challenge you guys to do it. Maybe we can get a couple people to do it, raise some money, whatever. So I think maybe 5, 6, 7 people shaved their heads, and we ended up raising $2,000 for Feed America, which goes to food banks across the country. So, you know, whatever. It was good.
That's sweet. That's sweet, man. I mean, you're right. I mean, you know, it's not like you're going on TV or anything right now, you know, unless right now, if you count this some type of digital TV, but
yeah, right. This is the biggest thing I've done in months. Not that it wouldn't be anyway. You're right. We appreciate that.
Yeah. But you know, let's for people. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this on various interviews or in-depth interviews, maybe radio shows or something. But you know, for people who don't know, let's just start at the beginning of your career. You know, how you got started in the broadcast game. You know, and just kind of walk us through up until this point.
Wow. All right. I don't know how specific you want to get, but when I was a kid, me and my dad, just like a lot of fathers and sons, we loved watching sports together, loved playing sports together. Most when I was a kid, we used to play baseball a lot, and we played tennis together. but we love watching football too. I grew up in Alabama, and of course they're football mad down there.
Right.
But my dad's job made him travel a lot, so he had to go overseas a lot. So he'd be gone a week, home a week, and every time he'd come home when I was like 6, 7 years old, as soon as I saw him, I would tell him all the games he missed and all the highlights in W. You're not gonna believe this. You're not gonna believe that. This was before DVR and all that stuff.
Right.
This was in the 80s. And my mom was like, well, Todd, you're like Howard Cosell. You're like a sportscaster. You should be a sportscaster one day since you like describing sports. And that always stuck with me. And then I wanted to be like a DJ, like the local FM DJ. And I got an internship at a radio station in college. And then I wanted to broadcast soccer. That's what I loved doing. I played soccer all growing up. I played briefly on scholarship in college. And I wanted to be a soccer announcer because the MLS started in 1996. And almost all the announcers they got were from England. No disrespect, Michael, but I'm like, it's an American league, and we got to ship in all these people that speak the exact same language as us just to call the game. I was like, I'm going to be the biggest, greatest American soccer announcer ever. But I started out in local TV in Iowa, being on the local sports channel, doing my 3 minutes every night, and then I went to Tucson, got a little bit better, a little bit bigger market, and then. I got called by WWE. Someone had seen my work. They called me, flew me in, wanted me to do an audition. I can go into all those details. But big picture, they hire me. I work at WWE for 8 years. And while I'm doing that, I also work for Fox Soccer Channel doing freelance. And I did their MLS Game of the Week. So I would host the Game of the Week. And then after that, so I called thousands of wrestling matches over 8 years. Went to hundreds and hundreds of events. Got hired by ESPN. So I did SportsCenter for 5 years. And while I was there, as soon as I got hired, the first thing I did, I went in to meet with the guy who ran Friday Night Fights. And I said, listen, I'd love to fill in. I love the show. I love boxing. I know people are probably beating down your door to get this job. And he said, no, not really. No one really cares much for boxing around here. I said, what? Yeah. So next show, I'm hosting the show, working with Joe Tessitore, Eddie Atlas. Did that for a while, and then UFC was kind of getting legs while we were there. So I started covering those events for ESPN. And then after 5 years at ESPN, I left, went to Glory Kickboxing, which I still do now, which I absolutely love. Travel the world doing that. And then I worked for the UFC for a year, calling those fights. And then I hooked on with Top Rank, calling fights for them through ESPN. And then DAZN hired me. So now I do primarily DAZN, some Golden Boy, Glory Kickboxing, and whatever else people want to hire me for. There you have it.
Are we right in saying that you actually sent a VHS tape, a resume to the WWE, and that's how it started?
Yeah, well, Eric Bischoff came to our station for some reason. There was a local Raw event in Tucson. So I met him and talked to him or whatever. And then someone called me and said, hey, man, you did such a great job on that interview with Eric Bischoff. WWE's hiring. You should send a tape in. I was like, oh, okay. Sent a tape in. Didn't hear anything for 6 months. Didn't even think about it again after I sent it, because when you're in a small market and you're making these big-ass VHS tapes to send people, I sent out probably 100 of those things. You never hear from anybody. But 6 months later, WWE called me out of the blue. And I don't know who watched it or who saw it or whatever, and they brought me in for an audition. It was me and like 4 other people. So we go one at a time. It was like the last episode of The Apprentice or something. I don't know what it was, but I got the gig.
Who did you audition in front of?
It was Jennifer Good was her name. She was one of the producers there. And Michael Cole was there. Mm-hmm. Josh Matthews kind of did it with me. And then there was a bunch of, they recorded the whole interview. So it was more of an audition. So they recorded it, asked me questions, had me pretend to sell something, had me call a match, so they make an interview tape and then they show it to the bigger names, the Vince McMahons and Kevin Dunns and now Triple H's and all those guys. Yeah. Right.
It's funny you mentioned Eric Bischoff. I was going to ask, because you posted a picture this week of you wearing a suit, jacket, shirt and tie with no pants.
Yes. Well, basically, Vince would send me out in between commercial breaks. So the crowd's just not sitting on their hands for 4 minutes during a commercial break. So he'd send me out there to entertain the crowd or whatever. So I don't remember what night it was. But the divas, 2 or 3 divas came up behind me while I was doing this thing, and they go, "Hey, everybody, we're trying to auction off and make some money for whatever the gimmick was that night. Let's take off. Who will buy Todd Grisham's pants?" And someone yelled, "Oh, $10." So they stripped me down. Of course, you can never say no in WWE. Whatever they're going to do to you. You're thinking Vince told them to do this. I don't know. They take my pants off. They throw them in the crowd, and I have to go walking around the rest of the night with no pants on.
Oh, my God.
All the shots that you can see from me up, that's normal, but I have no pants on.
Now let me ask you, do you think John Skipper would ever do that to you?
I doubt it. Hey, I don't know. He just survived coronavirus, thank God. I don't know if you guys heard that, but he suffered from that. And I don't know how much he suffered, but he had it. Yeah, he had it. And thank God he's doing okay now. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's great. That's great. That's good news. I didn't hear that. I don't know if Mike had heard that, but I mean, the good thing good thing that he's okay, you know?
Yeah. And good thing for me to kill you. And wait, good job of me to kill your joke like that to bring up something. John Skipper after you pull your pants down? No, in fact, he's almost dead. He survived coronavirus.
Hey, that's cool, man. It's cool. I'm a fan still.
Yeah.
Todd, one of the things I was wondering is when you're working with the WWE, do you actually know the script of the fight, or do you just have to call it all off the cuff whilst you're watching it?
I would say 95% of the stuff I didn't know. Every once in a while, there'd be something major that's going to happen that I would need to, hey, there's going to be this guy running out of the crowd. Don't say, "Oh, my God, that's John Cena," because we don't want people to know that it's him until we take this camera shot and show this angle, those sort of things. But as far as 2 guys stand in the ring, I don't have any notes about what's going to happen at all. No, nothing. But sometimes you can read the tea leaves. You know, like after the fight, Todd, you're going to go in and interview John Cena about what he wants to do next after this victory. Okay, well, I'm sure he's going to win.
Todd, during your time in the WWE, I think you mentioned you were there like 7-8 years. Who's the biggest boxing fan that people like fans or people wouldn't think is a boxing fan in the WWE? Whether it's like an executive or one of the performers.
Well, you know how big a boxing fan Triple H is. He walked down to the ring with the Fury, right? I mean, I know Mayweather's a huge WWE fan. I know you asked the question reverse, but he's a huge WWE fan. A lot of them, I remember CM Punk just loving everything boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, UFC related. He was a big fan, but almost all those guys, I mean, they almost equate it to them doing that stuff, you know? They consider themselves fighters, you know?
Right.
And they may not do it on television all the time, but a lot of those guys have real legit skills. I mean, before Brock Lesnar went to the UFC, I mean, he could kill almost anybody.
Right.
You know? Bobby Lashley's obviously still a wrestler. You know, CM Punk had his trials and tribulations, but I mean, you know, he can go. There's a lot of guys like that in the WWE. Booker T, scary dude. But Batista came out and did it. You know, Goldberg does a lot of kickboxing. He's a big kickboxing fan. I've seen him hit men.
Right.
He can go. So I would say the vast majority of all WWE wrestlers are fight fans.
Doing the research into you today, I was watching some of the videos, and you've been super kicked by Shawn Michaels, FU'd by John Cena. So how was that?
The super kick didn't hurt that bad. The FU, I mean, you got to deal with gravity, so it's not going to feel good. But it was okay. The worst thing that ever happened was Mickey James had to slap me. So, and the thing is, when you're like an announcer or an average Joe six-pack like me, they don't trust that you're going to sell it right. You know, if she's slapping John Cena, she knows even if she doesn't hit him hard or whatever, he's going to sell it just perfect so it works out. So they don't trust you. So, you know, one of the producers comes up to me and says, "Now listen, man, she's going to have to slap the shit out of you. So don't move out of the way. Just sit there and take it. Clench your jaw so she doesn't break your jaw." I'm thinking, break my jaw. Come on. I know she's strong, but she just slapped me and break me. Just clench your jaw. So, okay. And man, you go watch it. She slaps me so hard. And then she walks off and I'm sitting there holding my face, and we would do what we call like the soap opera stare.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the announcer goes, "Oh my God, Shawn Michaels caught Todd Grisham. We'll be right back." And there's Shawn Michaels just like looking around, you know, because he can't walk off screen yet till they fade to black for the commercial.
Right.
So she slaps me, And I'm just standing there, and the camera zooms in on me, and my eyes are starting to water up. I'm like, oh my God. And that's what you see fading to black, and I look like such a bitch. But man, that hurt. It hurt.
Now, Todd. I'm not sure if is Todd Grisham like your real name, or is it his name? So did you? So I mean, obviously we know that WWE and professional wrestling. When you get in there, there's a good chance that you might have a stage name, a performing name.
Right.
Did you get pitched any names when you went there, or did they say, "Oh no, we like your name, you can stick with it"?
When it comes to announcers, I don't think they usually mess with your name unless it's hard to spell, hard to say, or it closely resembles someone else's name. There was a guy named Todd Romero who got hired at WWE. He was an announcer. Well, I was already Todd Grisham, so they had him change his name to Steve Romero. So Todd Romero is a broadcaster now in Colorado, but at WWE he was Steve Romero.
Right. So if he would have got there first, you could have been Steve Grisham.
Absolutely. Or Deborah Grisham, whatever he wanted to go with, Yeah.
So you left WWE in what year?
I would say, maybe 2012, maybe.
Okay, 2012 and
13, maybe. Probably been 6-7 years ago, probably.
Right. And then what was? And then you went to ESPN, right?
Straight to ESPN.
So the first time that you
timed out perfect. My contract was coming up at WWE. I got an audition at ESPN, and nailed it.
So the first nailed it.
Well, they said at ESPN they basically have you sit down and do like a 5-minute Sports Center show. So you got to write it. They'll show you the highlights you're going to do, whatever. Right. So basically, for each what they call an on camera, like let's say I'm going to that day I was doing a story on the Major League Baseball All-Star game. So I'm like, today's edition of the 112th All-Star blah 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 blah. There's this new girl working there who's on the teleprompter, right?
Right.
So she's like, yeah, how are you? Okay. And I'm like, well, hey, don't screw it up. It's my big chance. Oh, I won't. No, I won't. So they tell everybody in ESPN, all the managers, to watch. There's this Todd Grisham is doing an audition at 2:00. It'll be broadcast to all the offices. So 2:00 comes. I'm sitting there like ready and go. Like, hey, everybody, my name's Todd Grisham. Da 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 da. All of a sudden, the teleprompter stops and then starts rolling backwards.
Oh!
So somehow the girl hit the reverse button. I kind of look at the corner of my eye. She's like trying to put out fires. Like, what do I do? And I just keep going and wing it. And I did okay, all things considering. But they were like, let's have you try it again because she screwed up. But in TV, you don't get do-overs, So I'm like, fuck, I'm not going to get this job. The guys in the office are like, who is this idiot? He can't even get the first on camera right. But I guess they were desperate and they hired me.
Do you think that maybe there's a chance like they did that, like they planned that just to kind of mess with you to see how you thought on your feet?
No, because they try other things. Like in the middle of your broadcast, they'll say something like, check your computer. And you look over the computer and they'll have like a big banner on the top. Breaking news, Barry Sanders inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So there's a breaking news graphic. Here you go. You click on it, you read it, and you go, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. Barry Sanders has been inducted in the 2020 NFL Hall of Fame class. Much more details coming up later tonight at 10:00 with Dan Patrick. We're going to make it up.
Right.
They kind of judge you on how you handle that. So they throw you some curveballs, but that was not it. So 3 words into my audition, the girl starts. There might as well been Portuguese on the screen. I couldn't tell.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you're lucky that you already had, a lot of professional experience in the game where you had to wing it. And, imagine if it was your first audition ever,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. The one thing I'm good at, and maybe it's because I screw up all the time, is just going with the flow. Because working at WWE, I mean, it's chaos. It's controlled chaos. And, sometimes it's not controlled. It's just straight chaos. I remember one time I was it was me and Maria Kanellis, who was a beautiful diva, and we were about to host this show from this pay-per-view pre-show from inside some arena where we're in like the the walkway around the arena, whatever that's called.
Right.
So we have a huge crowd around us, and they're like, oh, okay, we're going live around the world in 5, 4, 3, and they're about to cue me, and the crowd starts chanting, clap, 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 clap. Fuck you, Grisham. Clap, 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 clap. And they're like, and chew. And I'm like, hello and welcome to the biggest pay-per-view of the summer, SummerSlam, Todd Grisham. It doesn't even faze me anymore. So boxing, whatever it is, you can throw me a curveball, and I'm pretty good at it.
So you're not going to get kicked in the face.
Yeah, no. Well, who's to say a boxer won't punch me?
That's true.
They're actually safer in the WWE because these guys are, they're actors in some regards.
Right.
Backstage. They're not going to punch you unless they tell you they're going to punch you. You never know with boxing, right?
So touching on, I mean, you mentioned how the crowd at WWE and in professional wrestling, obviously they're a very vocal bunch, you know, just like you mentioned. And like you said, you've had some crazy things yelled at you, towards you. Since you've been in boxing, at least, when you're at DAZN events, boxing events, Golden Boy, Top Rank, has there ever been any drunken fans or something that just yell at you, hey, Grisham, you suck, like at a boxing event?
Yes. Well, I mean, in New York, they hate it. Everybody sucks according to them, right? Yeah, but usually it's people that recognize me from WWE at boxing events. Hey,
right.
But the thing is, a lot of them are just doing it as part of the,
right.
Be whatever. Most of those people, I was doing an autograph session. I wasn't signing autographs, but the line was long. So they're like, hey, Todd, go around and just talk to people and, keep them from getting upset. They're taking so long to get Batista's autograph instead of WrestleMania night. So I'm walking around, and I hear like on the other side of the room, some guy goes, hey, Grisham, fuck you. So everyone laughs. And I'm like, oh, so I walk over to the guy. And of course, when I get over, he's, oh, I'm sorry, man. You're good. No, just, man, they just want to bust your balls. They think it's hilarious. So, and most of them, it's jealousy because they would give their testicles to have my job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You seem to have legendary status in the drinking world, according to Sergio Mora and Chris Mannix. They often make references to it.
Yeah, what is that
first
about?
Of all, I'm drinking Mick Ultra, so let's start there. And this is not hard stuff.
95 calories, right?
This might as well be like a Virginia Slim cigarette. I mean, come on. Really? No, Sergio's the best and the worst because he likes to drink, but there's certain alcohol, like tequila. He's Mexican. You offer him tequila, right. He acts like it's the devil. No, I can't do it. It's tequila, man. But he'll do this and do this. And he's just, I'm pretty good at handling my alcohol and staying in my lane. Sergio, no chance. And Chris Mannix, God bless him, he seems like the biggest hard ass ever. But if you go to a karaoke bar, I'm talking about he's the first one up there, pushing like preteen girls out of the way. And he's singing like New Kids on the Block. He's singing Britney Spears. He's like a different person in there. I don't know what it is, but yeah,
he's a performer.
Give him alcohol and a microphone and a karaoke song. Look out,
man. I look forward to that day to see him at a bar and see him up on stage right there.
But it's great. You guys probably get a little of it when you go to the boxing events because everyone works so hard all week to prepare, and especially the fighters in their camps. And it's all over, and everyone's kind of staying at the same hotel. And it's always good just to, the winning fighters want to talk about their fight, and everyone's all excited. And, occasionally you see the guys who've lost, and you buy them a beer, and it's, and especially in the kickboxing world, because, we'll have an event in like, Copenhagen, Denmark, and almost everybody flies in for it. So afterwards, the winners are sitting there drinking with the losers, the guys they just beat up. So it's kind of a cool thing.
You have a cool story, I think, from Sichuan, China, when you flew out for the Glory Kickboxing and you actually managed to lose your passport and got stuck.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that, losing your passport in China. Well, there's this town called Guangzhou, and it is right on the border of Hong Kong. So I landed in Guangzhou. I show my passport to get out of the plane, and then I never saw it again. I don't know if I was pickpocketed, I don't know if it fell out, but whatever, lost. So I traveled to the airport for 3 or 4 days, had a translator. I had to leave from Guangzhou, drive to the city 3 hours away to get a new travel visa, come back, take that visa to the it took me 2 weeks. And it was just, and you talk about hating Chinese food. By the end, everyone's like, how's the Chinese food? I'm like, it's great the first day. And then you're like, what's for breakfast? Chinese food. That's all they eat, Chinese food.
24/7.
And they have like American fast food places. I swear to you, I ate this chicken sandwich from KFC probably 6 days in a row.
Oh my gosh.
6 straight days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Mike before before you came on, or earlier today, we were kind of brainstorming the interview, and he told me, yeah, he's like, I read that he lost his passport. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, oh, we're definitely gonna ask him about that, because yeah, man, that doesn't sound like fun at all.
And man, you talk about people complaining about voter ID laws here, and in China you have to have an ID for your passport for everything. Like they wouldn't let me check in the hotel. I had my driver's license, I had all my credit cards, I had insurance cards, all this stuff, but I didn't have a passport. They would not let me check in, and no hotel would take it because you're a Westerner, and it's still condoms.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I mean, hey man, luckily it all panned out. It worked out at the end, and you got out, man.
Before the freaking COVID-19 hit.
Yeah,
can you imagine? I'd be speaking Chinese by now, man.
So, kind of transition to you working at DAZN. Did you have to audition for DAZN, or did you just kind of jump in pretty much?
No, Matt Miller, who is one of the executive producers at DAZN, worked at WWE, so he was familiar with me. And when DAZN got started, I didn't know he worked there, but I reached out to whomever was the hiring person, because I was doing a lot of top rank boxing, but I wasn't doing their main cards. I was doing the undercards because they had Joe Tessitore with ESPN.
Right.
So I sent my stuff in. They liked it. He got in touch with me. They were like, hey, we've hired Brian Kenny. We've hired you. I hired 30 people out of the gate. Everybody was a cavalcade of stars.
Right.
It dwindled down a little bit, and thankfully I'm still there for the most part, but who knows when we'll be doing it again. But I didn't have to audition. I had kind of like I made one, it's probably about a year or two old now, just kind of like almost like a resume reel, they call it, or about 2.5 minutes of just quick calls. So, but I mean, you type my name in and you find 100 fights in a snap on YouTube. So people can hit. There's nowhere to hide in this business. You can lie on your resume. If you're like an insurance salesman, hey, I did this and did that, and it's all on paper. Right. You can click on that button anytime and hear how much you suck. And I've sucked many times. If they click the wrong button, I have no chance.
How was working with Teddy Atlas at ESPN on the Friday night fight nights?
Hey, I love working with Teddy. I mean, he's Teddy, but working at WWE, another good thing is there's so many different personalities. I worked with Jim Ross for a couple years, college fights, drove with him all over the country. Jerry the King Lawler. I mean, guys have been doing it like 30, 40 years, and you just kind of learn what they like and what they don't like to do. When Teddy's telling a story, I just sit there and listen. What am I going to do? Interrupt him? Say, what? What do you know? I'll let him tell a story unless something crazy happens in the ring. And then when he's done, I'll talk.
Right.
That's kind of how it was with him. If it's a young, like I've called fights with Ryan Garcia, where before the fight starts, I'm like, hey, Ryan, listen, let's try to do it like this. Let me kind of do this. You do this, and kind of give him a little whatever. But when you're working with somebody like Teddy Atlas, or somebody who's been doing it for years, I'm learning from them. They're not learning anything from me.
Mm-hmm. What was the best advice that you got, especially when you started in the boxing world and with your broadcast career, like whether it was from a fighter, another fellow broadcaster, like just one piece of advice during that time or right now?
I can't remember anything specific that jumped out at me but right when I started calling fights, to me, the main thing is speaking in sound bites. That was kind of something Jim Ross was really, that was what made him so good. If you guys know Jim Ross, you go back and listen to his legendary calls. It's usually not a string of 3 or 4 sentences. It's one thing. My God, he's been broken in half. My God, he's got a family. What I mean? It's one little quick little thing that you remember it for. So that's, sometimes it's what not to say, when to just lay out and let the crowd tell the story. It drives me crazy where, let's say it's a fight that's been kind of boring, and all of a sudden the crowd starts getting into it. And then the announcers go, hey, the crowd's starting to get into it. What do you think, Jim? Oh, yeah, listen to him. Whoa, boy. Instead of like, oh, here comes the crowd, and just sit there and let them feed the microphones for you. That's what to me, what the person watching at home wants to do is they want to feel like they're there, so bring them in.
Maybe you should throw a bit of the Jim Ross into the boxing, like, oh my God, he's got a family.
Oh, yeah. until you say that after someone really gets hurt, and then they're like, oh, that's true. Geez.
That's true.
And my thing is, I'm all about. I just go crazy. I can't help myself. I go crazy on some of these knockouts, man, because, and it's all authentic. Ask Sergio. He knows. If someone if 2 men were fighting in the parking lot right in front of you, and some guy just got his fucking head blown open and fell to the ground, you'd be like, oh my God.
Right.
What's happening? I'm sitting right there watching it. So you got to be careful. Sometimes the guy will get knocked out and you get so caught up in the moment and the celebration is, and you look over and the guy's on the ground in really bad shape. So you got to kind of temper it down a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, I've had to do that. I've done my share of things I wish I could have back that you said, but I just kind of let it go, see where it ends up. So
Todd, I mean, you said you worked with Top Rank, obviously Bob Arum's Top Rank. You've done Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing on DAZN, of course. Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy. Out of all these major, the major boxing promoters, what's like one or two words that you would use to describe each one of them? Bob Arum, De La Hoya, Hearn, Lou DiBella.
Well, Bob Arum comes off to me as like the Godfather.
Yeah.
You could put all the big boxing power players at the table right now, and if Bob Arum starts talking, no one's interrupting him. He has the floor.
Right.
If Eddie Hearn jumps in there or Lou DiBella, you could see Arum or maybe Al jumping in there. But to me, Bob Arum's the Godfather. Eddie Hearn, man, he's like the prince in waiting, man. He's coming up. He's a good looking guy. He's flashy. Fans they boo him, but you guys had him on a couple weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
November.
Feels like a couple weeks. My God. But,
I know, right?
I mean, to me, he's fascinating to listen to, and he's got the English accent, the whole thing. I love Eddie Hearn. Of course, he's with the Zone, but I don't know Al Heyman like almost everybody. I met him one time. I think he turned and was walking. It's like an Elvis sighting. He was turned and walking away from like a group of people at the MGM before the fight or whatever. And I walked in. I said, "Hey Al, how you doing?" Thinking he just think I was a fan. Like, "Oh, hey Todd Grisham, good to meet you. You do a nice job."
Wow.
Walked away.
Wow.
And that was it. Yeah,
you're right. It's like an Elvis sighting.
yeah. And like when I tell people that, like, you met Al Heyman. Oh my God. Yeah. But trying to think who else. And then Vince McMahon I would describe him as an evil genius. If he has 10 ideas, 9 of them are amazing, life-changing, wow ideas. And the 10th one would probably blow up the planet. It's like that. You can't. He has some great ideas, and then he'll say some. You go back over his career. I mean, he's batting 900 on ideas, but every once in a while there'll be something where he decides, and you're like, "Oh my gosh,
right?
What are we doing?" But there's never a dull moment at WWE.
Throughout your career, WWE, Glory, UFC, boxing now, is there anybody that you actually got nervous when you had to interview them? Because you got some big characters, obviously, in the WWE.
Right. Well, the WWE didn't really matter who I interviewed. It was more because you're just sitting there thinking Vince McMahon's watching and Triple H are watching right behind the curtain. So it doesn't really matter who you're interviewing. To me, the bigger the star, the better it is. Like The Rock, no one's even remember what I asked The Rock. They're not looking at me. You know what I mean? But if I'm interviewing some tumbleweed new wrestler no one's ever heard of, ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce you to the diaper dandy, whatever his name is. Then everyone's like, what is, but working with The Rock was always a lot of fun. Just because, you just walking with him, you just felt the energy. He pops up on the screen and you can't even start asking questions for like 10, 15 seconds because no one will hear your question. They just see his face and go crazy. Right. So, he was inducting his father into the WWE Hall of Fame. So I'll never forget this. And we were in Orlando, but that might be wrong. Mm-hmm. And I was the host of the show where I'm like, "Hey, welcome to Hall of Fame, where we celebrate those stars who paved the way for the superstars of today." I would do that whole spiel. And the first person I was going to introduce was The Rock. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, "Ladies and gentlemen, our first guest, The Rock." Boom, his music hits, they go crazy. Right? So I'm standing there and they're about to introduce me to come out. And I see The Rock there and he's in his tuxedo. And I walked up to him and said, "Hey man, listen, don't get nervous. Just be yourself. You're going to be fine." Okay. And he looked at me and goes, "I like you a lot, kid." I said, "Thanks, man." He goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, here's Todd Grisham." I start to walk out. He grabs my shoulder, won't let me walk around the corner, spins me around. He goes, "Don't fuck this up." Pushes me out like I'm walking out there. "Hey, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome The Rock." So, yeah.
I think he's given you a shout out before, or maybe I'm wrong, or at least when you were on ESPN or something, or what? I feel like he has.
He had to do some athletic thing. But he came to the campus to do some athletic thing, and they wanted me to goof around with him. So I was like, okay.
I think that's what it was. Yeah. So hey, man, he still looks out for you even at those times.
Yeah, man.
So, that's cool, man.
Everyone asks me, who's the nicest WWE superstar? Who's the meanest? I mean, all those guys are great, really. I don't have too many stories of guys that I didn't get along with. JBL, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He's an a-hole, and he'll tell you. He has his moments, but he's gotten a lot nicer as he's aged as well. So, with John Cena, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve, man, those guys are they're the best.
You kind of sidetrack it right here. What do you think about the whole Vice has been doing the whole Dark Side of the Ring? Have you caught any of those? What do you think about that whole series?
Yeah, I saw the Chris Benoit one. That's when I was there, and it was so crazy because I don't know how big of fans you guys are, but Vince McMahon in the storyline on Raw had been blown up in his limousine.
Right.
At the end of the Raw before it blew up. So that night's edition of Raw, we were going to have Vince McMahon's funeral. Right?
Yeah.
So we all had to wear dark suits, dark ties. It's like going to a funeral.
Right.
So we're all there at the building. We usually get there about 2:00, and you could tell something was wrong, something was weird, whatever. And Vince McMahon walks into the ring and says, Chris Benoit's wife and son are all dead. Mm-hmm. And people were just screaming and crying and freaking out. And they said, go, just show's over, except for these people stay, but just leave. Mm-hmm. And you're standing up and you're like shell shocked, and literally you're like looking around, you're like, we're at a funeral right now.
Right.
And it was just a surreal, horrible day that would only get worse.
Right. Yeah.
Because
yeah.
at first we were like, there was so many different rumors. Someone was like carbon monoxide because no one was even thinking that. But then as you started to sit there and think, wait a minute, he didn't call for 3 days. He didn't do this. He texted somebody and said, hey, make sure my dogs get let out whenever you come over again. Weird stuff like that. And then, yeah.
How was your interaction? How was your interactions with him when you were there before, obviously, that whole incident?
Chris?
Yeah.
Very quiet, very subdued, just kind of, hey, nice guy. He's from Canada. All Canadians are, nice. But he was very, if you went to talk to him, he would talk to you. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't going to come out of his way to strike up a conversation. That just wasn't him.
Right. Yeah. It's a crazy time. And there's a lot of people like with Vice doing their whole series and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who are, I do like how they're doing it where like they're not really tailoring it to wrestling fans, even though a lot of wrestling fans are watching it.
Right.
How they're presenting it is like they're giving you background on what the terms mean, what the who certain people are. So I was a big fan of that. That's pretty cool. But
I was also there when Eddie Guerrero died in Minneapolis. That was a horrible day too.
Right. Yeah, man. It's a tough business. I mean, I'm sure you've seen being there and going through those two dates at Guerrero and Chris Benoit and stuff like that. Were you there for? I don't think you were there yet, but were you there for '99 for Owen Hart?
No, I got there. I want to say I got there in like 2004.
Okay.
But my good friend Jonathan Coachman was there. The coach,
right?
I don't know if you remember. Yeah, he actually does some Golden Boy boxing every now and then.
Yeah,
right.
He was in Kansas City when that happened and saw it. He didn't work for WWE. He worked for the local NBC affiliate there in Kansas City. So that night he was on CNN, Fox News. I think all these people were interviewing him because he was there. What happened? It was a tragedy, and I guess WWE liked the way he talked about him because he didn't, he was a fan, so he was speaking highly of him.
Right.
And I guess Vince brought him in, and they hired him to be a backstage interviewer guy.
Wow,
that's how he got.
Out of tragedy, something good happened.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Well, I mean, like it's just like you weren't really had your sights set on WWE, and like they came into town, and it just kind of fell in your lap, and it worked out, right? It seems like that happened to both of you.
Well, I loved watching it when I was a kid.
Right.
Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, I love that guy. Hulk Hogan, that era, WrestleMania 3, Andre the Giant. But it never crossed my mind in a million years to even try to work there.
Right.
And they kind of like it if you're not a huge fan, because then they can, if you get there and you're like, oh my God, it's Stone Cold, it's this guy, and you're freaked out and you start worrying about the storylines and why are they doing? They don't want anybody. They just want a professional broadcaster for the most part to come in and treat it like a real sport. That's what they want.
Absolutely. And then, kind of going back to boxing here on DAZN. You guys obviously, DAZN obviously has been spending a lot of money ever since HBO kind of went out of business. Not just picking up fighters, but guys like you, talents like you, and stuff like that. Out of all the young fighters they have right now, you got a Devin Haney, you got a Ryan Garcia. You guys got a pretty solid stable of young cats over there. You just being, working with them and stuff, like as a fan, who do you think, can rise above the rest out of all of them, and in terms of all those young guys, or even women as well?
Well, to me, Ryan Garcia has everything except for the signature win yet. But I like guys that can generate passion and energy and sell tickets, man. That's what all boxing fans want. You don't just want a guy who's going to be great that no one watches, or, like even Lomachenko. Everyone, there are people saying he could be one of the greatest of all time. And I mean, he's popular, but he's not Oscar De La Hoya popular. He's not Mayweather popular. I think if Garcia wins, beats Jorge Linares, maybe they give him one other guy, and then he fights Tank, who's to say beats Tank, I think you got a real legit superstar on Oscar De La Hoya's level, or at least headed in that direction.
Todd, what's your thoughts on them going back to boxing soon? Just like the UFC are talking about doing it behind closed doors. Do you think it will work in combat sports, having no crowd there?
Well, I think the key is you've got to have the testing. I mean, if you hypothetically had a machine where people could walk up and blow into it or whatever, you put a swab in your nose and know the answer in 30 seconds, then yeah, you just line every fighter up and every trainer before they can enter your hotel or building. They've got to be corona-free, bring them all in, and then you do your thing. But it's all about the testing. But you'd have to test the judges, the ring card girls, the camera, everybody. So you have to do minimal staff, no fans, obviously, no vendors, bare minimum skeletal staff, and do it like that.
What was your take on, like, in Dana White and the UFC? Dana White was like persistent in saying, no, this event's going to happen. He was going on an Indian reservation out here in California. And then, like, I think, was it the week before or last week, or, obviously like at the 11th hour, kind of, Disney, ESPN, top brass came in and said, hey, you know what? Pull the plug on this. And then we heard that we talked to some commission members in the California State Athletic Commission, like, offline. But they all said, like, yeah, like CSAC was against it. They didn't want him to do it, but they were going on Indian land. Like, what'd you think about that whole situation?
I mean, I was hoping he'd pull it off, but that's what, if anyone knows anything about the UFC, I mean, I was at UFC, I want to say 14 in 1998. I mean, I was there, I saw Mark Coleman. Was Shamrock and those guys, or was that before Shamrock? Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mark Coleman was the champ. He lost that night to a guy named Maurice Smith in Birmingham, Alabama. But wait, I'll get some of these details wrong. But the UFC's whole existence is based on them overcoming people telling them, no, you can't hold an event here, and no, you can't do this. One of the events, I want to say it was somewhere in New York or a northern state, and they said at the last second, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours notice, hey, we're not having this sport here. It's human cockfighting. We're canceling this event. And within 24 hours, they found a place in Alabama, I think it was Dothan, got everybody on a big jet, flew down there and put on the event. So they're not used to hearing the word, no, you can't, and just saying, okay, no, we can't.
Right.
So, and I was hoping they'd pull it off. Obviously it would, if they could have done it in a real safe way, but that's the key. Everyone, what one person's version of safe is not another person's version of safe.
Right. I mean, like, with professional wrestling, like WWE, and then they're the new competitor. If you want, I don't know if, you've been in the business, but if you want to call them a legit competitor, AEW, like, they're still putting on their weekly shows. Even though that's not, full, like, contact combats in a sense, but they are in contact, physical contact. I mean, does that maybe kind of fuel boxing and UFC to kind of do the same thing, because, professional wrestling is doing it? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's more of whoever says we can do it, we'll do it. I think Bob Arum was like, hey, if Florida says that we can fight in Florida, then we'll go fight in Florida. That's where the WWE Center is in Orlando. So to me, it's more about what individual state will let you do it. I don't think New York you're not going to get anywhere near New York, maybe this year. As sad as that is, but that's ground zero in New York City. That's where the majority of cases are.
Right.
But, Florida, Oklahoma, some of these states that aren't having as many issues, I think it's going to be something like that, or maybe even in Vegas in one of these, small facilities like the UFC had. So WWE's up and running. Hypothetically, if Vince McMahon, who's friends with Arum, they worked with Tyson Fury recently. They had a lot of crossover stuff. They both have involvement with ESPN. So if WWE says, sure, Bob Arum, come use our building, we'll have all the testing kits there because we have to do it for our wrestlers too. All you got to do is show up, pass the test, you guys can fight. Top Rank's some business. They got to make money. So if ESPN's going to pay them, hey, we'll pay you $1 million if you can do a show. What are you going to say? No, we're not going to do it.
What do you think the difference? I mean, obviously there's big differences with Vince McMahon, just everybody, knowing him over the years and how he performed in the ring, especially during the late 90s and all that stuff with the Austin McMahon,
Yeah.
But what do you think, as of right now, John Skipper, being the head of DAZN, one head, comparison to another head in Vince McMahon, what do you think the difference is in terms of Skipper and McMahon?
Well, John Skipper, even at ESPN and at DAZN, he's the head of whatever he's the head of, but he still has other bosses that you don't even know about. I mean, he's the head of USA DAZN, but there's a guy head of DAZN, which is Japan, Germany,
right.
So he still has to answer to people and still has to, dot his I's and cross the T's. McMahon has to answer to nobody. Basically, right. Dana White may have a boss now, but for the most part, Dana White doesn't have to answer to anybody.
Right.
Who's going to fire Dana White? Nobody. Who's going to fire Vince McMahon? Nobody. Right. Yeah. So those guys are certainly willing to go out on a limb a little bit more, whereas, other guys just can't afford to or don't want to risk it.
So Todd, you mentioned that you get paid per appearance on the DAZN podcast. So are you technically still open? Are you free to work with other, entities if you could, or are you technically exclusive to DAZN even though they pay you per appearance?
I don't know. I haven't really. I've been so busy. I do kickboxing. Kickboxing is my number one job. I have to do kickboxing. I have a contract with them where we have a show. Todd, you're doing it, type thing. And then DAZN has been very gracious or very hospitable to me. And it's hey, if you have a show for them, no worries. Because I also have Brian Kenny and Ryan Rucco's called some fights. So I haven't had any really any lapses much in the calendar. I had 3 kids as well, so I can't travel every weekend. But right. Yeah, hey, if I at this stage of the game, if somebody calls me and says, Todd, would you like some money to do a job? Yes. Is it cutting grass? No problem. Whatever it is, I'm up for it. Right.
No, because the reason I asked, because since we mentioned the whole AEW, the new player in town, I mean, obviously, they're always looking for talent. They're scooping up a lot of notable names in the business. I don't know if they've reached out. I mean, I don't know if you would tell us if they did, but they have. I mean, they have Jim Ross. They have Tony Schiavone. They have, isn't Cody's wife? Isn't she an interviewer on the show, or she was at WWE for a while? I think they're all right there in the whole group right there. Yeah.
Hey, again, if anyone wants to call me, I will answer the phone. Yeah. But no, I mean, I have a dream job. I know that.
Right.
Everyone asks me, hey, it sounds pretty cool. I'm like, no, really, it's a dream job. I get to travel the world. I get to call fights. And that's, if there's one thing that this whole experience with coronavirus has helped, I think people are a lot more grateful for the things they did have and do have.
Right.
And I've always been very humble when it comes to my job. I mean, it could all end tomorrow. I know that. Mm-hmm. But, I just count every day and feel blessed.
Is there anything else left in combat sports that you'd like to do? Because you've worked for UFC, MMA, Glory, boxing. Anything else like a bucket list type thing?
No, but I'd love to do the bigger fights, though. I haven't really had – I've called some big fights. I called Manny Pacquiao's fight in Malaysia 2 years ago or last year with Lucas Matisse. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to call, Fury versus Joshua. I'd love to be the main guy, boom, boom, boom. But right now – they've got Brian Kenny and obviously Showtime, and they've got Morrow. Fox has their guys. So I'd love to be doing the big fight. That's the only thing really I have left it. There's no other sport I'd rather be doing. If NFL called me right now and said, well, we're going to pay you the same money, but we want you to come to NFL, I'd say, I'd rather do boxing.
Right.
100%. And I'm an Alabama guy. Now, if the Alabama Crimson Tide called and said, we want you to call our games every year, that conversation I would have to think about.
Man.
That's about it.
Todd, looking back on your 8 years, I think you said it was in the WWE, what would you class as the greatest moment and also the craziest moment you've ever had?
At work or just in general?
Like at work.
Huh. Well, I got to host the WWE Diva Search. Here, let me get this picture. Somehow this picture got printed out and sent to me. I don't know who sent it out to me. But we're starting this new show. We're getting these. We want you to host. Here we go. We want you to host here.
Oh, wow.
We want you to be the host of this like game show / whatever with these like 50 hot chicks. You're the judge. You're the whole thing.
That sounds terrible.
So it did the whole. And then one of the like things they had to do. They're like, okay, this is called the chicken fight. So you get the girls in the pool. Okay, Todd, you're gonna be one of the guys. So I did like 10 fights, and these girls would sit on my shoulders, and I'd be in the pool fighting with another girl. And I was like, what the hell has happened to my life? This is like a bizarre world, No, that was probably the highlight. How could that not be? But, I mean, I've called matches at WrestleMania and just looking around, and you see 90,000 people there, and you're like, it's weird when you're hosting a show. Like I would host shows that aired in England, and there was a show called The Bottom Line. It was on Sky Sports 2 and then like Sky Sports 3 all night on a loop. It was like a WWE recap show, and they'd send it to Africa and Asia and all these places. And they're like, yeah, last week your show was seen by like probably 100 million people.
Wow.
And you're like, oh, cool. And you're thinking, dude, that doesn't even process. But then you're at WrestleMania and you see what 80,000 looks like, and it just mind-boggling.
Go ahead, Mike.
Was that the craziest? Is that the craziest as well? The greatest and the craziest all in one?
Ooh, crazy. Oh, man. I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, it just when they come to you and say, hey, tonight John Cena is going to F you in the middle of the ring, or Shawn Michaels is going to kick you in the face tonight, and you're just like, oh, don't screw this up. Because it's hard not to flinch, man. I'm telling you right now. Right. Even if somebody says, look, they're going to come close to your nose, but they're not going to punch you. The first couple of times, it's just natural instinct. So you have to stand there and just say, do not move. Do not move. And with Shawn Michaels' super kick, he doesn't kick like a normal side kick through your face to hurt you. He almost, when his foot's coming, he almost kind of brings it down real quick. It felt almost like getting, like, instead of reenacted, instead of like getting hit like this, he kind of comes like this. So it's almost like getting slapped with a ping pong paddle, like just kind of like that.
Right.
But you got to trust that he's not going to go 2 millimeters further and break your jaw.
Right.
So it's just, that's, don't fuck it up, Todd. Don't fuck it up. Here comes.
It must be weird when you go for like a beer with your friends and you're like, so Todd, how was your week at work?
Right. Yeah. But that's when people would see you. Like when I first got hired at WWE, all my friends were going crazy, and friends from Alabama I hadn't seen in forever. Todd, oh my God, I saw you. You don't hear from them much. No one wants to go out. I just saw you interview some bearded guy. So when John Cena slams you in the ring or you get slapped backstage, whatever, man, your phone blows up. You got kicked in the face.
Kind of with the whole, because we touched on Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and all those guys. Like, obviously Joshua, I think, just released recently I don't know if it was a statement or a video where he's pretty much saying like he wants. Was it Wilder or was it Fury? Do you remember, Mike? It was one of those, but I mean,
it was an interview with Chris Mannix where he calls Wilder. Yeah, he calls Wilder a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, you got Fury and Wilder are probably going to go for a third fight again. Do you really think that that they're going to try to block out AJ for as long as possible?
Why not? I mean, especially if Fury's thinking, I just crushed Deontay Wilder. Why wouldn't I want to fight him again? I don't need to mess with this bloke yet.
Yeah.
He'll be there. He'll be there whenever I want him. But I can fight Wilder right again. The terms are ready. The fight's set. Let's do it. And for Wilder, It depends. They keep saying, he'd be a bitch to take the step-aside money. I'm like, wait a second now. How much is the step-aside money?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, who's to say they don't say, hey, man, here's $10 million because these two guys can sell out this stadium, charge double the price, pay for that they said to Deontay Wilder, here's $10 million, and we promise you that you get the winner.
Right.
He'd be an idiot not to do that, I think, if he just had to sit on the shelf for $10 million.
Right. But
they may not have that kind of money, or but obviously Wilder's, I mean, he's from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, man. I'm from that state.
Right.
And those people aren't the type that, don't want to be seen as sellouts or scared. So he might say no money is good enough for me to step aside at this point.
When Wilder, I think Eddie Hearn and DAZN were trying to make a pitch at Wilder for him to come fight on DAZN, and they offered him. They pretty much increased his price tag, so he was able to get paid more with under Al Heyman and PBC. Was that? I mean, you being on the inside, and we're not saying that you maybe were part of conversations or anything, but from what you heard working for DAZN, what was that as close as people thought it was, or was Wilder serious about that? Do you think that could have happened?
Well, I know. Well, the only thing I know that was serious was DAZN's offer,
right?
Because you mentioned Skipper. I'm pretty sure he was in the room. Eddie Hearn, Lou DiBella, anybody that needed to be part of the conversation was in there. And I don't know the exact figures, so I don't want to throw random stuff out there.
Right.
But they offered him crazy money that I still don't think he's gonna make in 3 fights, because they were going to pay him an obscene amount of money for the first fight. Who did he knock out in the first round? Slipped on my mind.
Brazil.
Deontay, yes. He gets paid crazy money for that. Crazy money for the Ortiz fight, or he probably wouldn't have fought Ortiz, but I don't know what he made for Ortiz, but it wasn't. And then you get the third fight against Joshua. Mm-hmm. I mean, is he making $100 million for his last 3 fights? I don't know. So, but the thing is, these guys, especially guys like Wilder, they've never been beaten in their life. All they know is winning. Right. So when someone says to you, yeah, you can take this $100 million, right? Mm-hmm. But if you play your cards right and you fight the right people, instead of $100 million, you can make $130 million. Oh, wow, that sounds better. But you can also say, hey, of those 3 fights, if you lose one of them, instead of $100 million, you're probably going to make more like $60 million.
Right.
And I always go with the guaranteed. I mean, wouldn't you? If I said, hey, listen, your salary for the rest of your life would be $100,000 right now a year, or you might make $130. If you don't make $130, you're going to make $60.
Right.
When you be like, $100,000, I'm done.
Yeah. Right.
That's just me. Like I said, those guys have a different mentality, and hey, he still may make more than that. What if he knocks out Fury again
right,
or knocks him out for the first time?
Right. No, absolutely.
Then I'm stupid.
Do you think?
I'm already stupid.
Do you think that AJ or Canelo is the biggest star in boxing right now? In terms of money generating everything. I mean, I think Canelo in terms of worldwide and stuff, but some people say, well, AJ sells out stadiums and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think?
Canelo's bigger here. Canelo's much bigger over in North America, all the way down to the South American hemisphere, whereas Joshua, I think, is much bigger in Europe and probably in Africa. So
he's big in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, because they have big contracts with him. When he's not fighting, he's always over there. So,
but who's to say if Canelo went over there and fought in Saudi Arabia? You think? They might sell it out. I don't know. It's down to those 2 guys, and Fury's probably third. I mean, who else would you put at 3?
Right.
Probably unless maybe Pacquiao.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, that I touched on that really quick. Pacquiao. Eddie Hearn has made his intention known. Obviously, that especially when he talks to Mikey Garcia, he's done live streams with Mikey Garcia recently, saying, hey, Pacquiao. I mean, Eddie Hearn has said he's going to try to make a pitch to him. I mean, do you think that could work out?
Why not? I mean, he got Mikey Garcia. Knows how to get Mikey Garcia, Eddie Hearn, to come fight. He got Canelo Alvarez. I mean, money talks. Those guys aren't stupid. Kevin Farmer, why did he fight his own? Because they offered him more money. It's that simple. So if Pacquiao says, hey, I can offer you, Hearn says, hey, I can offer you $40 million, and PBC says, we can offer you $50 million. I'm sure he goes there. But it's all about the match stuff, I think, for Pacquiao. And he may still have tax issues in the U.S., so he might want to fight in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
I don't know all the details.
Right. Well, Todd, we appreciate your time. We know you're over there in the Northeast area, Connecticut, New York, that general area. So, we know you're a couple hours ahead of us. We're over here on the West Coast. I think Mike might have one last question for you here before we wrap up.
And this is the big question. For our British fans, we know you're a big soccer fan. So who's your favorite English team?
Oh, man.
Here we go. This is going to make or break the interview, I think.
Jeez. Well, see, when I was big into the Premier League, it was like mid to late 90s, man. Like Liverpool had Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman, and Newcastle had Peter Beardsley and Faustino Esprit and David Ginola. I mean, I loved in Manchester United, Eric Cantona and Andy Cole. So those were my years, man. But right now,
man,
I guess I'd go Chelsea. No,
I'll give it to you. I'm a Newcastle fan, so.
Well, I mean, come on. Who's your star now? Who's your best player?
Who's our best player at the minute?
Yeah.
I don't think any of them are any good at the minute.
Well, there you go.
Our best player is probably the goalkeeper.
Yeah. Well, hey, when Alan Shearer was running up top, man, that guy was unstoppable.
Oh yeah, he's Premier League legend.
Yeah. I loved the late 90s Newcastle teams for sure.
Well, Todd, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of our English listeners might hate you for that answer, but we still always like you, man. We're still always going to be fans. So,
all right. Well, hey, thanks guys for having me on. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
We appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. And before you go, go ahead and plug your social media or anything you got going on. I mean, nope, we don't have too much going on right now, but anything you got going, go ahead and plug it, man.
Follow me because I got nothing going on. On Instagram at Todd Grisham and on Twitter at Grisham Fight.
Awesome. Well, for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.